Tom Pelissero gives us details on the secret, not so secret BA meeting with the San Francisco 49ers and some numbers about the 49ers offense that I think will surprise some people. Stick around. Welcome, everybody. Let's go Niners. My name is Jason Aponte. I'm Jason Aponte. This is 49ers Afternoon Talk. Thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure you guys drop a like. It helps me out a lot. Subscribe to the channel if you're interested in more 49ers content and news. So, yesterday, Brandon Aiyuk has I think it was 2 days ago, actually, has a meeting with the 49ers in which Ryan Clark says, he's on his way over there to do that. Adam Schefter then confirms that Washington and the 49ers has some sort of dialogue around the trade. And then we get silence, right? So yesterday we hear nothing about this meeting. And today, Tom Pelissero does a roundtable on the NFC West with a few other people, including Brian Baldinger, Omar Ruiz. And they're talking each team. And he gives the 49ers to Brian Baldinger. Brian Baldinger had something pretty interesting to say about the 49ers as well, too. But the Brandon Aiyuk thing comes from Tom Pelissero. So I just want to play what he said because I don't want to paraphrase what he said so you guys can hear exactly what was said, because I think it goes against a lot of what we thought we knew about this situation. So let me pull this up so we can play it. All right. If it plays.
Big games, or maybe like that Super Bowl against Mahomes.
One other pretty big question for the 49ers. They report to training camp like a lot of teams on July 23rd. Will Brandon Aiyuk be there after he skipped minicamp? Here's what I can tell you. Aiyuk and 49ers brass met on Monday at Aiyuk's request. This was a good meeting. From what I was told, both sides said things that needed to be said, and they're going to keep working. It's important to note here, there's never been a trade request from Brandon Aiyuk. That hasn't changed. The 49ers stance hasn't changed either. Despite getting trade calls on Aiyuk going back to draft week, they're moving forward, and they want Aiyuk to be a part of the team in 2024. So what I would anticipate here is all parties involved will go ahead and enjoy the 4th of July holiday, regroup sometime after that. They've still got several weeks here to see if they can hammer out a deal that locks in Brandon Aiyuk with San Francisco for the long haul.
Okay, so meeting went good. No trade request. The 49ers want him here for 2024. Things needed to be said. I mean, no one knew what was going to be said in this meeting. No one knew what was said right after this meeting. But all this kind of just lines up with the 49ers stance of, we want him back, but at a certain price. And again, we're still deep in negotiations at this point. But the important thing is no trade request, none. The 49ers have no reason to trade Brandon Aiyuk, especially because he's under contract for a 5th year and they can franchise tag him. But they do want him to be extended. And once the 4th of July weekend is over, they'll go back and hammer out a deal. I tweeted yesterday that I was very tired with the situation because of the social media antics and the report after report after report. I hope this calms people down because we're going to get radio silence now, probably most likely until after July 4th when they go back to the table. But July 23rd has always been a soft deadline. Again, if we're following the way that the 49ers have done these deals, it shouldn't be any shock that this is going to go all the way up to training camp as it has, right? But what I wanted to point out too, and if you guys want to check that out, it's on the NFL Network's Twitter, is Brian Baldinger talked about the defensive line and how they underperformed and how Nick Bosa not having an offseason to work with Javon Hargrave and how that really hampered them. So my biggest concern, obviously, with this is that it bleeds into week 1. Not that Brandon Aiyuk and Brock Purdy need to work together because they clearly have a rapport, but I thought it was interesting for Nick Bosa to divulge that to Brian Baldinger and have him say that because for the first time, the 49ers were out of top 5 on defense, and everything that makes them go, he said, is a defensive line, and he knows that they underperformed. So that's always been my biggest fear, is that this thing goes all the way up to like week 1, and then Brandon Aiyuk goes out there and you have this slow ramp up. I would very much, and I think everybody else would, I would very much like this team to hit the ground running, especially with the soft opening of the schedule. because when things do get difficult, you want to make sure you have all those wins racked up, because it is the NFL. You're going to lose games, and you're going to lose games to teams that you're not supposed to lose games to, just how it goes. Almost every single season, there's a game or two like that. So it's important for this team who has these Super Bowl aspirations to just run right into the season and not walk at all. So again, July 23rd is when veterans report. Feels like a soft deadline. It probably, if it goes into training camp, that's fine. I just don't want it to bleed too far into training camp. And it will be a lot better if Brandon Aiyuk gets in there early on. But again, the biggest takeaways from what Pelissero said, no trade request. The 49ers want him. And there was things that were said, and it's a very good meeting. A good meeting, right? That's the way that's the thing we should really walk away with, is that it was a good meeting. Again, I've talked about this many times. I am sure that Brandon Aiyuk feels disrespected in any negotiation. Any person that's any person that's human is crazy. Any human is going to feel disrespected. I believe I'm worth this much. No, we believe you're worth this much. Can't nobody put a cap on what you feel like you're worth. And in this ugly game of football with the NFL, you have to get every single dollar that you can. Every dollar. Because this game don't love you back. When they don't need you anymore, there's no severance package. Like here, just, go on off into the wind. No, it's your cut. We don't need you. That's it. You're expendable. So I understand why players do that. I'm always going to stay pro player. But in this regard, how could Brandon Aiyuk not feel disrespected? You look at what Jalen Waddle gets, and he's probably saying, yeah, I want that. And they're saying, well, I don't know if you deserve that. And then I think the biggest thing is the discussion around the Washington Commanders, right, is the 49ers are telling Brandon Aiyuk, we don't think you should be paid as a wide receiver one, but they want a wide receiver one return in a trade, right? So Brandon Ayuk's hearing all this, and he's like, wait a minute. You won't take less than whatever it is that you believe I'm worth, which is like a first-round pick, whatever, a high second. But you'll turn around and tell me in a negotiation that I'm not a wide receiver one based on production, this, and this, right? So I'm sure he feels disrespected. And I'm sure that every athlete that has gone into a negotiation has felt disrespected at one point or the next. Negotiations get nasty. Albert Breer today wrote on a Monday Morning Quarterback. He said that he believes it gets done, but there will be more friction on the way in terms of it's still going to be bumpy when it comes to negotiations. And I think that's him. I don't know if that's him necessarily hearing anything more than it is just a logical, educated guess, right? Like it definitely will get there, like a little bit more, right? I don't think it'll get to a point where, Brandon Aiyuk becomes a complete malcontent and the 49ers have to just say, oh God, get him out of here. That would drastically knock down their Super Bowl chances. Drastically. So I don't see it happening that way, but for what it's worth, people that are working in the industry, they are seeing movement. They are saying that there's some good things happening. They do expect this to get done. So that's good. That's good news. For anybody that was worried about that meeting, again, to recap, Tom Pelissero says, good meeting. Everything should be going in the right direction. They want him around. No trade request. So we're good. All right. For everybody that's in here, thank you guys. Make sure you guys drop a like. It helps me out a lot. Subscribe to the channel. Hit that notification bell for when we go live. I wanted to get into a little bit of something that I just wrote about on Niners Nation when it comes to the 49ers offense. So I know we have our problems with Pro Football Focus at times because their grades are subjective at points. But as I always say, when things are in the favor of my narrative or they paint a picture of how I wanted to paint it, yeah, I'm in with it. So they came out with an article that says quarterbacks who were helped most by scheme, protection, and weapons, right? And I think some of the things that 49er fans could see with their eyes didn't need to be reinforced by this article, but it is going to be kind of interesting to give the proper context with some of these numbers. So I'm going to pull that up real quick as well, too. Shout out to everybody in here. I see you, Tyler, Matt, Charlene, Lamar. I see my boy Wolf Speed. Everybody, shout out to you guys for being here. Let me get this up real quick. Okay, so quarterbacks who got the most help in 2023, the players aided by pass protection, receiving court, scheme, and more. Okay. So the first part of this is pass protection. I think 49er fans off the rip understand pass protection can help, right? So you're going to see that the 49ers are at the top of the list on so many of these things, but they're nowhere near the top of the list in pass protection. And again, you don't need PFF to tell you that. Your eyes are telling you that, right? And again, this is based on pass blocking grades. So the Eagles are number 1, the Ravens are number 2, the Vikings are number 3, the Falcons are number 4, the Broncos are number 5. If you're interested in what the 49ers pass blocking grades are for the offensive line, 55 flat for the regular season. 55. Now, just for context, the New York Giants were the lowest pass blocking graded team in the league, 43.4. That means that's a 12-point difference. That's below average to bad, right? So how does Brock Purdy do it then, right? I mean, with pass protection, you definitely need a little bit of time to operate. And you look at these teams, right? Philadelphia pass blocking grades. See, the context that I want to give to the Eagles is Jalen Hurts doesn't get hit a lot because he kind of just floats in the back with the ball, and he's just like rolling out. And obviously edge rushers and defensive linemen are going to get to him. So I don't know. I mean, and the Eagles have an offensive line that's great. I'm not trying to downplay them, but it is a little hard to contextualize that because he is kind of just floating out of the way and nobody's ever getting near him. So if they're talking about in terms of like quarterback hits and sacks, he doesn't really take many because he just last season, if you guys watched them at all, he just hikes the ball and he kind of just like floats to the right and then just either throws it out of bounds or something or just runs. So yeah, the Eagles are number 1, the Ravens number 2. Little bit of that is Lamar's legs as well too. The Vikings, that's a little surprising. Atlanta, that's surprising. Denver with Mike McGlinchey, that's surprising. But yeah, the 49ers 55 pass blocking grade and the Giants 43.4. Now, receiving core. Obviously, the 49ers are number 1. And when they say receiving core, they don't just mean Brandon Aiyuk, Deebo Samuel, and Juwan Jennings. They mean all receivers, George Kittle, and Christian McCaffrey, okay? So that's why they're number 1. This one is a no-brainer. I didn't need this grade to show me that the 49ers have the best weapons in football, right? Like, it's clear. But the 49ers total 4 players who saw 100 or more targets in the regular season and playoffs. All 4 earned an 85-plus PFF receiving grade. So, yeah, the 49ers were helped by their weapons. That's a popular Brock Purdy narrative, right? Like, carried by the weapons, right? Carried by the weapons and Shanahan's scheme. But funny enough, the next one is open receivers. So these are passing snaps with 3 or more open receivers in 2023. Number 1 is the Kansas City Chiefs. Number 2 is the Baltimore Ravens. Number 3 is the Arizona Cardinals. Number 4 is the Buffalo Bills. Number 5 is the Houston Texans. The problem with this stat is I had a tough time tracking this down on PFF. So I did a little digging, and True Media actually came out with, this chart that shows 1 receiver open, 2 receivers open, 3 receivers open, 4 receivers open, and what percentage that is. So when I looked this and I cross-referenced this with the top 5, the top 5 aligns, but it aligns a little bit different. For 3 or more open receivers, it's the Buffalo Bills. They're number 1 actually, right? But it's still the same 5. Funny enough, 17% of the time, 49ers receivers, according to True Media, 49ers receivers 3 or more were running wide open. But isn't it a popular narrative that the Shanahan scheme just has guys running wide open all over the place? It's kind of funny. 17%. And to put into context, the Buffalo Bills had it 25%. The Chiefs had it 22%. The Texans had it 21%. So not even in the top 5, huh? Funny how that works. So that wouldn't that lead you to believe that Brock Purdy's throwing the ball into tighter windows? I thought everybody was just running wide open. Funny how that works. Okay, let's keep going. Screen passes. EPA per play on screen passes. Now, the 49ers are far and away number 1 here. Why is that? Deebo Samuel, Christian McCaffrey. We get it. They're literally about triple what the next team is, and that's the Dallas Cowboys. This is expected points added per play on screen passes. So with an EPA per play average more than 3 times higher than the next best team, the 49ers screen game was in a class by itself, including the playoffs. They picked up 517 receiving yards and 5 passing touchdowns on screens. However, they are nowhere near top 5 in screen passes. Nowhere near in terms of how many. The Kansas City Chiefs caught 32 more screens than anyone in the NFL, 135 including the playoffs, while the New York Giants 43 was 13 fewer. So while the number is number 1 and where they're at, It doesn't mean that they're screening everybody to death, which is another popular Brock Purdy and 49ers offensive narrative. They just do it more efficiently than anybody. So they don't have to do it all the time. They're not spamming that. That's not happening, right? So let's keep going. Run pass option, EPA per play. So the 49ers generated a positive EPA on a whopping 88.2% of their RPO passes in 2023, including the playoffs. Their quarterbacks went 15 for 16 for 171 yards with a touchdown and interception on 17 dropbacks. One pass was incomplete, and it was an interception. The Philadelphia Eagles recorded more EPA dropbacks than any other team, but they averaged minus 0.272 EPA per play on those 75 dropbacks. So look again. The Philadelphia Eagles ran RPO 75 times on 75 dropbacks. The 49ers are top of the league on 17 of those. Again, not spamming it, just running it more efficiently. And then you have play action. EPA per play on play action. The 49ers led the way again here, far outpacing any other team in the league. The 49ers quarterbacks went 104 for 140 for 1,348 yards and 13 touchdowns, and just 2 interceptions, including the playoffs last year. Excuse me. Man, it's hot. My God, it's like 90 degrees out here. San Francisco 49ers 0.416, Buffalo Bills 0.328. And obviously play action works that way because of how the 49ers run their offense and how good their passing attack is. So, look, what does this mean? It means that so many of the narratives can just be busted by, I had an argument with somebody in a bar about football. I love talking football with people face to face, and I love getting different perspectives because I think we take for granted that we're just going to be talking to people on here like people that are like either experts or just people who have really, really, really done this. And someone who's a Dallas Cowboys fan says that Dak Prescott's a top 5 quarterback. I vehemently disagree. Says that Brock Purdy's carried by screens and little option throws. I vehemently disagree because all you have to do is look at numbers and the sheer volume of how the 49ers run this. It's not like they're spamming this. It's a popular narrative to people that don't watch games, again, or don't know ball. Dak Prescott's not a top 5 quarterback, and that's not true about Brock Purdy. And I told him, I looked him straight in his eye, and I said, I would take Brock Purdy today over Dak Prescott today to run my offense. To run this offense, absolutely, 100%. And I went on to tell him that I think that Dak Prescott is a top 10 quarterback, top 7, probably. That's fine, But when you start to bust all those narratives, he starts to go into, well, you haven't won a Super Bowl since 1995. Or the Cowboys have won a Super Bowl in 95, and that's more recent than you. And I was like, okay, you lost. Like, you lost this argument now. Like, it's crazy. It's crazy because what does that have to do with the fact that the 49ers beat the dog shit out of the Cowboys every single time that they face them, and you have no chance of beating them? So he didn't want to hear that. But it's just, when I hear these things, obviously from the media, obviously we see things on Twitter, obviously we talk to people, in the street. Everybody seems to have this narrative of just like, oh, everything's short, everything's short, everything's short. He's carried by this, he's carried by that. Sure, has he helped? 100%. But I don't remember Joe Montana throwing to mailmen and throwing to, to nobodies. I don't remember, when Tom Brady didn't have, Randy Moss or again, Peyton Manning didn't have, Reggie Wayne and Marvin Harrison. And like, come on, man. Like, I'll never understand that argument. Everyone needs someone, right? So it's just silly. But I did point something else out, which is funny because, there's another one, right? Well, Brock Purdy's a checkdown merchant. Brock Purdy's a checkdown merchant, and he's somebody who just gets the ball out and just is, he's not really pushing the ball down the field, right? Well, we already talked about last episode about how much he actually does push the ball down the field. But, and I want to reiterate this, every throw into the flat isn't a check down. The difference is a check down is after you exhaust everything on the field and then you go there. Sometimes the first read is right to Christian McCaffrey. Sometimes that's where the read is. Excuse me. So that's not the same. And if you guys want to take a look at that, I have a passing concept out where I break down one of the plays where it is literally Christian McCaffrey reading the defense and he's the first option. That's not a check down. A check down is you go 1, 2, 3, and then you get the ball down because you have nobody downfield. That's not a check down, okay? I want to make sure we reiterate that. But, man, this is going to be good. So, highest check down rate, and I believe this is from, I want to make sure I get the time frame correct. Let me see. This is from 2022 and 2023. The highest check down rate, minimum 300 dropbacks. Russell Wilson's far and away number one on almost 1,100 dropbacks, 112 checkdowns, 10.19%. Joe Burrow's fourth, 8.9%. Our old buddy Jimmy Garoppolo on 520 dropbacks, 8.85. Derek Carr, we know, is a checkdown master. Justin Herbert, 8.8. Joe Flacco, 8.43. Mac Jones, 8.23. Okay, Matt Ryan's on here too as well. That's pretty crazy. Now, the lowest checkdown rate, Trevor Lawrence, 3.74 on almost 1,300 dropbacks. Jalen Hurts doesn't really check it down, 4.47. Lamar Jackson doesn't. Josh Dobbs, the 49ers backup, 4.63. CJ Stroud doesn't check it down. He throws the ball a lot downfield. Aha! Brock Purdy, 686 dropbacks, 38 checkdown attempts, 5.54%. Almost the 10th lowest in the last 2 seasons. Patrick Mahomes has a higher checkdown rate than Brock Purdy. Funny, huh? Now, on third down, you can, obviously this changes things, right? But on third down, you gotta go get it, right? Like you've got to get to the sticks. Russell Wilson's still there at 10.10. But, these other ones, it's limited sample size. Like Nick Mullins is there. Like that really doesn't tell me anything. But isn't that funny? That's kind of funny to me. Everything's check down merchant, this, and this. 10th lowest check down rate. I implore people to watch the games. I implore people to do a little bit more research. Please don't let a narrative cloud the truth. Again, a lie makes it around the world 3 times before the truth gets out of bed. It's right there. It's not hard for you to find these things. These are things that are just there for anybody to look at. I'm not finding these things. I'm not unearthing anything. But this is where we are because of the people and the hesitance to say anything nice about Brock Purdy or this offense. And another thing is like, well, you're going to pay him this amount of money. Yeah, that's the going rate for a starting quarterback. It's the going rate. You have to pay that, right? When everybody complains about Brandon Aiyuk getting 30 and you're only paying Christian McCaffrey 16, yeah, it's positional value. 16 million is the highest for a running back. 30 million is not the highest for a wide receiver. Their positional values go up. Quarterback, 55, 60 is where we're at right now. And I think the report came out today that Miami's not going to be in the range of Jared Goff with Tua. And hey, whether that works out for them or not, I predict that once Dallas lets Dak get out there, Miami's going to put on a full court press to get him in there. And I think that's going to be where it is. And then Dallas is going to be left scrambling. But just a little bit more into this offense. Just there's so many things and there's so many ways to look at all this stuff and just say objectively, goodness gracious, objectively, this team is a product of the system, the scheme, everything, right? Like it's incredible to me when it comes to how many people have a problem understanding, what is actually happening, right? And I'll give you one more real quick. Again, shout out to you guys in here, man. I'm glad you guys are hanging out with me today. 424 on my side. But I wanted to talk about personnel groupings as well, too. And this is from Coach Bruce 122. I want to make sure I give him his credit. But obviously the 49ers run a lot of 11 and 21, right? Or they don't run a lot of 11. They run a lot of 21. So 2 running backs, meaning Kyle Juszczyk and Christian McCaffrey and George Kittle. So they run it the second most. And I think the first most, if I'm not mistaken, is the Miami Dolphins. Now, I'm actually kind of shocked that the 49ers are not first here, but I'll let him go with it. So 11 personnel, 1 running back, 1 tight end. They run that the second least. But they're first in EPA per play, 0.23, 0.27 on pass, 0.14 on rush, and 70.5 pass rate. In 21, which they run a ton. You see it, 37.8 of their plays, right? That is EPA 0.1, which is 9th, 0.17 on pass, 0.002 on rush, 49.7 pass rate. 12 personnel is 1 running back, 2 tight ends. So you're probably looking at a time when it's Charlie Warner on the field at this point. EPA per play, 0.2, which is second, and they run it their 25th. Is it least? 13.4%. It was 25th in the NFL. That's the way we're going to say it. EPA per pass, 0.61. EPA per rush, minus 0.07. 39.7 pass rate. So it's funny to me that on 2 tight ends, you would probably expect them to run a little bit more, but their EPA per rush is actually negative. And then 22 personnel, 2 running backs, 2 tight ends. They run that the second most. So 21 and 22, those are your biggest packages right there in terms of how frequent they run it. First in EPA, 0.41, 1.01 EPA per pass, 0.09. In rush, 34.8. Yes, that is very good efficiency. So again, when we're talking about all these things, it's just really the 49ers have just found a way to sustain offense, and it literally lifted every quarterback. But with this weapons group, with the way that Brock Purdy does things, it's lifting this offense now. It is. Obviously, we know what happened in the Super Bowl, and we don't have to talk about that, because you would like for that to happen in the biggest game. But today, it really just is a few facts. The weapons are really good. The scheme is really good. And Brock Purdy's really good. Doesn't get much easier than that. Shout out to everybody in here, guys. Make sure you drop a like. That helps me out a lot. Subscribe to the channel if you want more content. A lot of 49ers news and content coming. We're less than a month away from training camp. My goodness, real football is about to happen. But I'll take some questions with you guys. I mean, I don't really have too much more. I'm having a great time hanging out with you guys. And I talked about the 49ers offense, talked about Brandon Aiyuk and what Tom Pelissero said about the meeting, which should have 49er fans a little bit more calm. I don't know how easy that is. We're not a calm bunch. But either way, if you guys have any questions, anything like that you wanna talk about, I'm willing to take it. Shout out to Birdman Jr. 86, Tyler, Charlene again, Matt, Wolf Speed, everybody that's in here, checking out the show today. I hope you guys are having a great day. I hope it's not as hot where you are and where I am. My goodness, man, it's like I don't even want to go outside at this point. It doesn't even make sense because it's just ridiculous. Will Speed says, "How are you and baby girl?" My daughter's in the Dominican Republic right now, so she's doing better than me. When you're hot on vacation, it's different than just being hot and at home. So she's in the Dominican Republic with her mom, visiting her grandfather. Thank you for asking, 100%. All right, Charlene, how do you see the tight end room shaping up? So I've been very vocal about, what the 49ers are telling you about what they think in terms of Cam Latu, and the kind of talking up of Brayden Willis. So you have the 49ers signing Brock Wright to a offer sheet that Detroit matches. Then they signed Soybert. They signed Logan Thomas. They're talking up Brayden Willis. And then you have Kyle Shanahan when he's asked flat out, "Hey, is Cam Latu your tight end too?" It just flat out, no. Not even like, "Oh, we've got to see," just no. Like with that voice. And he's like, "God, no." Like he was upset with it. So it stinks because Cam Latu hasn't had a full season or even a training camp, right? Because he lost the season. And then you have the drops issue, but he's behind the 8 ball here going into training camp. Brayden Willis actually got snaps last year. Not many, but he actually played in games and in the playoffs. Logan Thomas seems like somebody who is a natural fit to just be in passing situations, a receiver. Soybert got guns, so I think he's going to take over Charlie Warner's role. Well, how many tight ends are you going to keep? I don't know. Cam Latu's really on the clock here. So I would predict right now, Kittle, Soybert, Thomas, and Brayden Willis. Those are your 4. I have a hard time seeing this young man, cracking through this roster. And Pline has a shot. I think Pline gets put on the practice squad. But I think Soybert, who was a signee, and you got to follow the money, they made sure to go out of their way to sign him. I think that's where you got to follow the money, and I think that's where he makes the roster as well too. Oh my God, I'm sweating like crazy over here. All right. Thank you for that one, Charlene. All right. Tyler, what's up, my boy? Jason, how's the offensive line? I know we addressed offensive line in the draft, but how are you feeling about it right now? I think there's an interesting conversation that needs to be had about the offensive line in terms of there can be a different way that you can go about this. I think everybody's kind of penciling in Jake Brendel, right? And I know Chris Forrester loves him because he brought him over from Miami. But what if there's a world where John Feliciano takes over as center? The 49ers start their rookie from Kansas and move Spencer Burford to right tackle, or just stick with McKivitz. The 49ers have this interesting thing where they can just run it back with this line if you want. But again, when you finish up with a 55 pass blocking grade, like we talked about, okay, there's different ways to operate around an offensive line that has pass protection issues. But in the biggest moments, when they break down, whether it's miscommunication or just flat out getting beat, it becomes this like fatal flaw that's kind of sitting there in these games, right? Like where it's just like, if they have someone who's dominant or if we make a mistake, you almost have to be perfect in every way when your pass protection doesn't give you all the time you need, right? What I mean by that is, if you are lacking in the pass protection area, then your quarterback has to be able to operate the offense, get the ball out quickly. Your receivers have to gain separation so the ball can get there. So you need almost to be perfect. Now, if you have proper pass protection and you have better pass protection, you still need to operate this offense with the timing that Kyle Shanahan wants, but you can get away with maybe he's not there, and now we can work through these progressions. At times when the pass protection is breaking down, you have to make sure the ball's out. And I've been very vocal about this. Pass protection is twofold. It's pass protection and the quarterback. It's both of them, right? Because if you're holding the ball for too long, it doesn't matter how well you're pass protecting, you're going to get into trouble. You're going to get hit and everything, right? So it is twofold. But when your pass protection isn't holding up, then everything else has to be perfect. Your receivers have got to get their separation. Your quarterback has to get the ball out. These are the things that, while the 49ers have been great at doing that, in the NFL it's harder and harder, because if you have a team like the Chiefs on the back end who can defend, Brock Purdy's got to hold that thing one more second, and then boom, Chris Jones is in your way, right? And he's in your face. So I think that's kind of the issue, right? Is yes, the 49ers can win games with this pass protection. Yes, they can win a lot of games. Yes, they can win playoff games. But in those big moments, it just seems like it's either a miscommunication or just a flat out, Trent Williams didn't have the best Super Bowl. It's kind of sad to think about, right? Because he's still the best in the game, but he didn't have a really good Super Bowl. And then you have the Burford thing, right? After Feliciano goes down, then things kind of just go to hell, right? Like, it's just in these big moments, right? Like, everything else has to be perfect. And if someone else can stop one of those things, meaning a defensive backfield that can cover, or making the quarterback hold the ball, that's when you'll find yourself, in those situations where things don't go well. So, let's see. Shout out to Gammon. Thank you again. Mod Squad in the building. Thank you for the donation. When writing for Niners Nation, what is your creative process for getting past writer's block? Which peers review your work? Who is your mentor? Thank you. So for me, I don't necessarily get writer's block, and that's not because I'm just like, oh, I'm so amazing. It's because I'm given a topic, either by KP. Like, I'm allowed to come up with whatever I want. For the most part, like, when you'll know it's something that I'm passionate about, it'll be like those film breakdowns, right? Where I put up the film clips, I explain what's going on. That's what I'm passionate about. That's when I'm just like, KP, I'm putting in a film breakdown, and he's cool with it. But for the most part, I wake up and I ask KP, like, hey, what are you thinking for today? And he'll give me something. And when he gives me something, it kind of stops me from getting writer's block, because I know what the topic is, and I know I have thoughts about it, and I know I can go research it, and I know how I can frame it. So if I get writer's block on anything, it's not what I'm writing about, it's what to write about, if that makes sense, right? Like, this dead period, I've been trying to find ways to write about things. Like today, when I wrote about the Tom Pelissero thing, like that we talked about earlier with what he said about Brandon Aiyuk. That's me finding something to write about, right? But when there's nothing and it's that dead period, then I've got to come up with something, and something that I'm not necessarily as passionate about. Like, where do the 49ers rank in power rankings, which is all kind of just like content filler. So I don't really get writer's block on topics. I get writer's block finding topics, because if I don't find it engaging, I don't want to just put something out there that's like blah. Which peers review your work? KP is my editor. So I sent it to KP, and for what it's worth, KP says I'm an easy edit. So yeah, I mean, pat myself on the back for that one. But yeah, and then who's your mentor when it comes to writing? I don't know. I don't necessarily feel like I have a mentor when it comes to writing. I just know where I started. I started on 49ers Web Zone. Shout out to David Bonilla, who, you know, gave me a lot of great advice, and he was very much one of the people that said, whatever it is you're passionate about, write about it, because it'll come through the page. He allowed me to do like my first few film breakdowns on there, and that's kind of where I got my foot in the door, like a little bit with the writing. So I mean, if you're talking about mentor, I was like, he's giving me a ton of great advice. Like David's been really, really cool when it comes to that. Shout out to David and Al, and then, you know, Mark Adams and you know, all the guys over there at 49er Web Zone. You know, we've all got a good relationship with them and everything as well too. But yeah, David Bonilla has really given me a lot of good, very good advice. And he's a great guy overall, man. So shout out to him. So hope that answered the question. Shout out to you guys. Yeah, so 36 minutes in again, guys. If you're here, please just drop a like. I'm probably gonna get out of here because I am sweating like crazy. It is crazy hot in here. The air conditioner is not doing its job right now. But I'm looking to be back either tonight or tomorrow with Brian. I'm gonna try to figure out, that's Brian Peacock of Locked On. I'm trying to figure out what his schedule is looking like. I'm probably gonna hit him up after this. We'll figure that out. So again, guys, Brandon Aiyuk's meeting with Tom Pelissero, he deemed it a good meeting. He hasn't requested a trade. They are trying to keep him, and they're going to take the 4th of July off and get back to it. And also, if you want to check out some numbers on the 49ers offense, rewind the episode. But hope you guys are having a great day. Hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day. We'll see if we're back today or tomorrow, but I'm out of here, guys. Take it easy. Have a great day. Welcome, everybody. Let's go, Niners. My name is Jason Aponte.